my little oddballs, it's Amy and welcome back to my channel. So today's video might be a little bit of a change of pace, it might be a little bit different. At this point I don't know what it is going to be. I have no idea what I'm going to say. There's probably going to be a lot of word vomit, and I guess in that respect it's very much like all of my videos. But what I mean is, it's a little bit different because it's a bit more of a serious topic. I want to tell you guys about a relationship that I had when I was younger and I was a teenager, way back in the day. That was a very toxic, controlling, unpleasant relationship. And I've wanted to make this video for a long time because maybe one of you is watching this and you are in a similar position right now and listening to my story, you'll have that sudden like bing light bulb moment and you'll wake up and realize what's happening. Because the thing is, with this kind of like controlling, manipulative, mind games based relationship, you don't really realize that you're in it. You live in a little bubble and it's very difficult to actually see the reality of what's going on around you because someone is playing mind games with you and it totally distorts everything you see and everything you experience. So my hope is that maybe, even if one person out there sees this and thinks, oh my gosh, that is my life, I need to get out now, I will consider that a win. And today's the day that I just finally get on with it and make it, after what was obviously the world's longest introduction. I was 18 when I started going out with this guy and it was my first ever relationship. I was very young for an 18-year-old, but I was by no means a stupid girl, you know what I mean? I think there's this misconception that any woman or person who ends up in a controlling, dysfunctional, toxic relationship is stupid or has really low self-esteem, that they would for some reason like walk into an abusive relationship. And that's not the case because nobody goes on a first date with a guy and he's a complete arse to them and they're like, this is the man I want to marry. He tells me I'm fat, he says nobody likes me, he makes me feel like the worst person in the world. This is the man for me. Like, nobody does that, obviously. It doesn't start out like that, and this can happen to anyone because I was and continue to be a very outgoing, self-assured, confident person. That whole idea that you know only certain types of girls end up in these relationships, that is just a myth. So there I was 18, I was bright, confident, spunky might be pushing it. And this guy really liked me. He really wanted to go out with me. He would ask me out all the time. Like, we were really close friends, but he made it very blatantly obvious that he wanted me to be his girlfriend. Like, he kept asking me. And I kind of didn't want to go out with him, but he kept asking and he was just so sweet. This is the thing, he started out as the sweetest, most attentive, just complimentary, lovely, thoughtful guy. And in the end, I was like, this guy is so sweet and he's so nice. And I just keep knocking him back. And I feel like really mean. So, okay, let's go. Let's give it a trial and see how it works. I remember it got very intense very quickly. And within the first 2 weeks, he told me that he loved me, like, wholeheartedly. And I was 18, this was my first boyfriend. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know if I was in love or if I was just, you know, in the mood for cake. How do you know what love is if you've never been in love before? And I felt kind of pressured, which should have been my first big flashing warning sign. That at first I was really obviously reluctant to say, yeah, I love you, because I didn't feel like that's how I felt. I didn't even know how I felt. And then I kind of felt like he forced me to say it. He kept being like, if you don't love me by now, then you're never going to love me. So we may as well just like not even bother with this whole thing. And that was kind of an ongoing theme that carried on throughout the entire relationship, which would be that maybe I didn't agree with something that he said, or I didn't feel something that he wanted me to feel, or I didn't do something that he wanted me to do, and he would just wear me down, and he'd be like, you should be doing this, you should be feeling this, you should be doing this for me, you should be wanting to do these things for me, you should be wanting to drive through the woods in the middle of the night to come to my house and see me because I asked you to. You should, you should, you should. He constantly made me second guess myself and second guess whether what I was thinking and feeling was right, because he was constantly telling me that it wasn't. And I had a lot of inner conflict, and that's why it became so difficult to really get my head around what was happening and kind of detect when things were wrong, when he was doing things that he really shouldn't have been doing and saying to me, because I was made to feel like I was crazy in a way, or that I was overreacting. And like I said, it wasn't like that from the start. This was something that crept in over a period of time. And at the start, like I said, he was this amazing guy, and he was so sweet and so thoughtful, and he made me feel like I needed him. He made himself a necessary feature of my life. He made me very dependent on him. And one of the ways he did that was he cut me off from my friends. My friends didn't like him, which obviously they had more sense than I did. And he was just mean to them. He was rude to them. And they just didn't want to be around anymore. And he made me feel like I shouldn't be spending time with my friends, because why should I spend time with my friends when I should be spending time with him if I loved him? But I had this best friend, and we were so close. We talked to each other every day. We were just inseparable. We were like sisters. And he hated her. And looking back, the reason he hated her was because he wanted me completely isolated. He wanted me to be entirely dependent on him. He blatantly didn't want me to have this friend who I trusted with my life, who was going to be like there to see the things that he was doing. You know what I mean? And he tried his damned hardest to split us up and to stop me from being her friend. And whereas my other friends kind of fell by the wayside very quickly, this friend stuck with me like glue, and I'm so grateful for that. He was so mean to her, and as well as being mean to her to try and push her away, he made me feel horrible for spending any time with her. And I used to lie if he'd phone and he'd be like, well, where have you been today? And I'd say, oh, I've been to the beach. Oh, with who? Oh, just by myself. I'd be genuinely scared. I would be genuinely fearful that he would find out that I was lying and that he'd know that I'd been with my friend. And I mean, when I look back and I think about that, I just think, what the heck was that? How did I get to the point where I was in a relationship where I was afraid to be caught with my own best friend, as if I was some kind of criminal? But I was scared. I remember that feeling in my stomach, please. I felt like I was in a dystopian novel almost, because I would say things like that. I'd be like, no, I was just on my own. And I almost felt like he had spies and that he was going to turn around and say, no, I know you're lying to me. That's how I felt. Like, I got so paranoid and so, oh my gosh, when I think about it, what on earth? Oh, but she was a true friend and she stuck with me. The sad thing is we're not friends anymore, but at that time she got me through this 100%, because she did not leave my side. No matter what he threw her way, she was like, no, I don't care. Say what you want to me. I'm not abandoning her with you, crazy. Unfortunately, that best friend did not go to college with me. So throughout the day-to-day running of my life, while I was in college, I was really isolated. One thing they used to say to me a lot about my male friends, because I have a lot of male friends, we had a really big friendship group when we were in college, was that none of them actually liked me. He was like, they don't like you. They just want to have sex with you. Why would they like you? Why would they want to be your friend? And that just makes you feel terrible. It makes you feel like, oh, okay, well, nobody wants to be my friend. And it must be true, because all the friends I did have don't want to be friends with me anymore, which, you know, obviously that was because of him and not because of me. But at the time, I just felt so alone. And once he saw to it that I didn't have anyone there and that I was totally dependent on him and just needed him to be there and sit with me, he would go off with his friends and go to McDonald's and leave me alone. And that was, again, another reoccurring theme, is that he constantly made me feel dependent on him. And when he saw that I was most dependent, he would just shut me off. He read my diary, and not only did he read my diary, but he annotated my diary if there was something in there that he didn't like. We were only together for just over a year, but it should never have gone on for as long as it did. It's weird because for a long time in that relationship, I was miserable. And I was aware that I was miserable, and I was aware that the person who was making me miserable was him, because I would feel a knot in my stomach every time I got a phone call from him. Like, I didn't want to answer the phone. I'd be so tense whenever we were together, just waiting for him to be angry about something, and waiting for him to go off on something, or waiting for him to give me the silent treatment, or to find fault with me about something, or to say something mean. I was constantly on edge. So I knew that the reason I was so unhappy in my life, and I was really unhappy, and I was really lonely, and I was really just miserable, I knew that that all stemmed from this one person. It's weird because it's like I was in some kind of strange denial, because I kept going, yeah, but I really love him, and yeah, but he really loves me, and yeah, but we're gonna get married, and it's gonna be beautiful, and if I can just be a bit better, if I can just do this extra thing or that extra thing, or if I can just not annoy him by walking the way I do. Because that was one thing that I got shouted about once, was the way I walked. It really irritated him. If I could just fix all those things, then it would be perfect. And he wouldn't have to find fault with me. And if I could just be good enough, then he would be nice to me all the time, the way that he was sporadically here and there. That's what I wanted. I wanted him to be consistently the sweet, lovely person that occasionally he would flip that on and give me a taste of it and be like, look how wonderful I can be. And then he would take it away, almost as if he just wanted me to work towards something that I was never going to get, because someone who does that Jekyll and Hyde thing is never going to be a nice person consistently, because that person is inherently manipulative and cruel, and that made me kind of like a dog. Like, I was constantly performing and trying to get his attention, like, treat me, reward me, look, I can be so wonderful, I can be a good girlfriend, I won't do any of the things that you don't like, I won't see these friends that you don't like, I won't go these places that you don't like, I'll throw away my Lady Gaga CD because I know that you don't like it, just reward me with love, please. There was one night I distinctly remember, this is going to be my last example because I'm aware that this video is the longest ever, but I was getting ready to go on holiday the next day, and I got a phone call from him, and my stomach just sank, because I knew that I was going to be in for it for some reason, that he was just going to phone and make me feel horrible. So I picked up the phone, and he was like, are you going to come and visit me before you go away? And I was like, no, I'm really busy packing, blah, blah, blah. I just didn't want to go and see him, which, side note, if you are in a relationship with someone and you actively lie so that you never have to go and see them because you are afraid to be around them or you are uncomfortable with their presence, this is not a functional relationship, so probably step away. But yeah, I was like, no, I really can't. And for the next, I want to say 40, maybe 50 minutes, I sat on the phone, and he just, like, kept coming at me with, like, this guilt trip. You should want to come and see me. I love you, and I want to see you all the time, and you're going away, and you're not even making the effort to come and see me, and you should be coming to see me, and blah, blah, blah. And I just sat on the steps, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I cried, and my mother was walking past and kind of, like, looking at me, wondering what the heck was I talking about on the phone that was making me bawl my eyes out like that. And I ended up going and driving over to see him. And I think one of the reasons I didn't want to was because it was dark, and he lived way up in the middle of nowhere, and you had to drive through this like wooded area, and it was really, really creepy, and I hated it. And I always would tell him, like, please don't make me drive to your house in the dark on my own, it's really scary. And I mean, aside from the like zombie-like atmosphere, it could have been very dangerous in real life if I'd have broken down there on my own. I mean, I was out in the middle of nowhere, it was awful. So I had to go there in the dark, and it was horrible, and I was like all creepy driving and still crying. And then when I finally got there, he was like, oh, well, I've decided that I'm just gonna go to the pub instead, so you can leave. It was like it was a game for him. Let's see if I can make Amy do this thing. And then once I did it, he was like, no, you're not needed anymore. He ended up not getting into university, and he had to go abroad to study, which was, at the time, my heart was breaking because I had been conditioned into thinking that I needed him in my life and he was central to my existence. And it didn't take long after he was gone for me to realise just how much of a lie that was, that I did not need this guy in my life, and that actually I was so much happier without him being around. And so I broke up with him. And what I should have done, and what I wish I could go back and tell myself to do, would be to completely cut him off and cut him out of my life. And I didn't. And what happened was, for the next year, I was still getting the mind games and the manipulation and the texts and the messages and the phone calls. I actually think it was worse after we broke up than it was when we were together, because it was like a barrage. He would not leave me alone. And I did start to feel like I was literally going crazy. I acted probably crazy. No, not probably, definitely. I acted like a crazy person. He pushed me to the edge. He made me feel horrific about myself, horrific about my life. I cannot describe to you the emotional turmoil that this one person put me through over the course of 2 years. I look back and I can't believe it. That was the story of my controlling, manipulative, not very pleasant ex-boyfriend. I'm sorry if this has gone on and on and on and on and on. But I had a lot of things to say. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that maybe it spoke to some of you. If you are in a situation where you are with, a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a friend or a family member who is manipulating you, who is making you question yourself, who is making you feel bad about yourself, who is trying to cut you off from the people around you, is saying mean things to you and is bullying you, someone who just makes you feel awful, if you have that kind of person in your life, please, please don't put up with it. Get yourself out with a clean break. Do not let that crazy claw its way back into your life. Honest to goodness, you are worth so much more than that. No one deserves to be treated that way. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!